and turn it into a customer or a client. The way to get there is by truly understanding that audience and being able to use data to turn an insight that they can be actionable and create a singular experience for that person. You need to understand that it's about trial and error. Hi, how are you? My name is J.J. De la Torre. I'm a digital maverick and expert in digital transformation and digital disruption. I'm making this exclusive video for the Internet Moguls of the World School. Thank you, Avi Arya, for inviting me to share my work. In today's class, I will be talking about design and how to create disruption starting from this component, design. So welcome to my class. We're going to be talking about disruption based on design. My name is J.J. De la Torre. I'm a managing partner of Virtus Digital. I'm considered one of the top 18 digital transformation leaders worldwide. I've been also considered one of the top 5 digital influencers. I have created more than 200 digital transformation projects. I have been an advisor for the OECD, the BID, and the UN. And I have been an entrepreneur, an investor, and a mentor. Here you have my contact details in case you want to reach me after this class. So today we're going to be talking about disruption based on design. And I will be talking about 4 key things. 1, what we consider a new game. It's a new game that brings new expectations, new challenges, and new opportunities for corporations, entrepreneurs, and in particular, everyone that is looking to embrace digital as a way of transforming an organization or a business. Second, we're going to be talking about design experience, how design is so important and is embedded in everything that we do that we need to consider when we're creating new strategies. Then we're going to be talking about how to move forward, how to take concept number 1, the new word, number 2, design experience, to actually move forward. And 4, I will be giving you some recipes that we consider, and we call it a cocktail, where you can combine these elements and use it for your organization, for your business, or for anywhere that you want to apply it. So let's start. So digital transformation, evolution in the new context. It's a new game. We have new technologies that are changing how we live and how we experience the physical world. Today we live in a world of unprecedented change that actually is forcing us to actually permanently reinvent ourselves, our businesses, our business models, our expectations. We live with new realities where our customers and our collaborators are expecting a new way of engaging. They are looking for disruptors that are the ones that are coming and are creating these new realities. And what these guys have done, they have basically changed the bar between what we were used to be doing. 74% of new customers will switch their traditional business if it was easy to do so. So 3 out of 4 customers will actually change your company if there is an easy way to do it. So what is digital transformation? First of all, it's not technology. Technology is just an enabler. We see many clients and companies that confuse this concept and actually start and end digital transformation with technology. Put technology at the forefront. Go and start buying new platforms, new technologies, and thinking that just by making those investments, they are going to be able to transform their organization. It's not also to refocus on the internet. We see many organizations that actually focus on opening new channels and creating internet access for their customers and thinking that just because they open a new channel, they are transforming themselves. It's not to digitalize your business. And this is maybe one of the biggest mistakes this week. We see organizations focusing on taking the same processes and using digital technology to make it better, to make it more efficient, without evolving the business model. And most of the time, negatively impacting the customer experience as a result of this effort. It's not being digital. If you're a brick and mortar company, if you have not been born as a 100% digital company, don't try to be a digital company. Focus on understanding your DNA and re-understanding your assets, and from then evolving and transforming. So what is digital transformation? For us, is to create a new relationship with your clients and collaborators based on experience enabled by new or evolved business model and powered by data. Powered by data, new business model, and focus on a relation based on experience. These are the three components that, when we find it, we'll be talking about digital transformation. And why the concept of experience is so important. 63% of consumers globally are willing to pay more for an experience, even the low-end population segments. Nobody's looking for a product and service undifferentiated. Nobody is looking for a commodity. People want experiences. And when we focus on experience, we started to build digital transformation. So let's go to the second chapter of our presentation today. Design experience and how we can transform organizations based on design. First of all, let's understand and put it very clear. Design is always present in our life. Every single day we interact with artifacts, people, machines that has been designed. And every time that we design these components, we need to detach from a creative process, from an aesthetic process, and also from a look and feel perspective, to use a definition that I consider much more relevant to these days. Design is the relation that governs the interaction between people and entities. And when we talk about relation, we talk about the symbiotic relation between people, between us and tools, machines, or different elements that we want to relate, an interaction that doesn't need to be explained. A good design will drive your behavior. And this is one of the key components that we find out when we create interaction. Without an explanation, without a manual, without someone that needs to actually teach us, we're able to interact with other elements, and we're able to drive behavior on people just because we're designing. And finally, it's about people and objects. The way on how you create design will drive different ways of interacting with people. In this case, this is a very long table that we can see in this picture. If we're going to have a meeting in this single setup, we'll have one sort of interaction. Then imagine that we have exactly the same people but without a table. Everyone is now standing, different interaction. And then let's imagine that it's a very long table, and I'm sitting on one side and everyone else is sitting in the other side. Other type of interactions. The why and how we arrange people and how they relate, between objects will drive an interaction. So transformation by design, and why design is the key to the success of a business. First of all, let's consider that 95% of first impressions are design related, which means that design is much more relevant than we think, and it's not only an aesthetic thing or a look and feel thing. It's about, as I was saying before, how we interact, how we arrange, how we drive experiences with other people and between us. And even if we see in terms of how you pass judgment on a company or a brand, 75% of the judgment, or how you're going to basically be judging a company, a new brand, a product, is design related. So once you open a product, once you start interacting with something, without even using it or purchasing, you already pass a judgment. 3 out of 4 times, that judgment will be based exclusively in design, on how you're perceiving this component. And in the case of digital elements or digital experience, it's even more dramatic. 85% of the interactions will be based on the first seconds on how I perceive the relation with you and your company. But good design is extremely complex. To generate good design is not just about to putting colors or putting elements or trying to create a nice interface. It's about how you can drive behavior with your customer. How you can basically, using the 3 components that I mentioned before, being able to drive a specific reaction from the customer that you're targeting. So let's take these ideas into actions, and let's see how innovative design can be a true game changer in terms of the experience that you're building, the value proposition that you're encapsulated, the business model that you're conducting, and how all this gets together to drive the organization forward. And I think a great example here is what's happened between Nokia and Apple with the traditional Nokia phone and with the iPhone. iPhone has never been a better phone than the Nokia in terms of battery use, coverage, etc. As a matter of fact, when iPhone came to the market, Nokia used to make fun of the iPhone because the coverage was so poor, and you have so many phone-related issues that basically didn't make it a better phone. However, what Apple did with the iPhone was to encapsulate it, the way of holding a phone, into a new, completely brand experience that moved away from the phone. Nobody considered an iPhone from a phone perspective, but rather from a companion perspective, where you can do much more things than just making phone calls. As a matter of fact, your relation with an iPhone starts much before you start experiencing or making the first call. It starts when you get your box, and when you unbox that iPhone, when you experience the process of actually taking the phone out in an amazing experience, fully of delightful moments, and that truly encapsulate the principles of design that I have been, discussing with you today. When I take out that phone, I already built a relation with the brand and with the product that goes beyond making calls. So then it's become completely relevant for me if this is a much better phone or a worse better phone. I have a new relation, so I'm going to judge the relation based on features that are completely different. You can think, for instance, how many of you still have that box of your iPhone? And now think about it, why you have the box. I have asked this question all around the world, and I have got answers like, it's too beautiful to throw it away, I put things inside, I didn't feel good by discarding them, etc., etc. And this is a recognition to the type of relation that Apple has been able to build with us by reinventing completely a product category and turn it into a companion that goes beyond just making phone calls. Other examples of this we can see, for instance, with Uber. Right? There is a disruptor that basically has not only encapsulating a better way of moving from one place to another, but started from a symbiotic relation between the end user, the customer, the taxi driver, and a platform that basically combines and handles this relation. But also they have continued evolving this value proposition, adapting and adding new elements that actually enrich it, and by solving new problems for the end user, they make the platform and therefore the value proposition more relevant. Another example is Airbnb. Airbnb, with a focus on design, a focus on really transformation and how to continue evolving, they recognized that their value proposition was incomplete if they were just giving to their customers, an accommodation where they can stay. So they introduced the concept of experiences that mix, great accommodation with great activities to do, that all of them are curated for a host and for people in a completely closed social environment that allows a way of interaction with them that is, unprecedented in a normal perspective. And again, from a complete user-centric approach that started by understanding deeply what were the concerns of the travelers that were going from their home to some Airbnb accommodation, and some of them, didn't know which experiences, which activities to do. Airbnb took this need and turned it into an evolution of their value proposition. So by putting design at the center, we start being able to take a value proposition and continue evolving it. And a similar example we can see with Spotify and Spotify running. an app that actually acknowledges that one of the key activities that Spotify users are doing is actually running, and encapsulate the best experience of music with a nice experience of running, and getting together into a new value proposition. So the ability of actually continue being reinventing your value proposition, starting from a design perspective that is building experiences, is one of the common trends that we'll see in companies that embrace this concept of transformation by design. You put design at the center of everything that you do. That design starts by deeply understanding your consumers and your customers, and because they're constantly reinvent themselves, because they constantly is changing the way on how they interpret the world and your value proposition, that value proposition keeps evolving. So starting from this trend, let's see how we can create unique experiences based on design. And as I was saying before, customers are permanently reinvent their minimum expectations. And we have this saying here that is the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectations for the experiences they want everywhere. What this is saying is like experience is liquid. Experience will constantly reinvent itself, will continue evolving, and that evolution, what is going to make for us as a company is we'll need to start to constantly be battling by reinventing our experience. So when we talk about value proposition, when we talk about experience, this is no longer a finite project, it's no longer something that we can grab. Now we'll call it a North Star. A North Star is something that it will guide us, but we'll never be able to reach. And we'll never be able to reach because it's constantly reinvented. Every time that one of your customers experience a new way of interacting with a different product, a different service, a different experience, even outside your industry, if that experience was good, it becomes the minimum way of accepting how to interact with you. And this is so dramatic because what's happened today is like if you use one of the digital disruptors, for instance, and you have an issue with the customer, with the service, and then you complain, and then you get this solved in a matter of minutes, and the money that was charged returned to your account, and you're happy with that experience, that becomes your minimum expectation. So the next time when you go to your bank, your telecom, your insurance, your water company, your electricity company, the legacy company, and you have an issue, your expectations in terms of how this needs to be handled is the way on how the disruptor basically handle it. And because 3 out of 4 of all of us will churn from our traditional companies if it was easy to do so, if there is a disruptor that comes and disrupt this way of actually handling things, we'll move very quickly to them. And this is what we're seeing worldwide in industries that has been disrupted. While the legacy companies and the traditional companies and the incumbent keep trying to evolve, old value propositions in the same traditional way that is inside out, is like thinking from my perspective of a company what I should offer to you and not really starting by the end customer. Disruptors are coming, and with complete liquid experience are reinvented industries, business models, and relations with customers in a complete new fashion. And this became extremely relevant because another statistic is telling us that 9 out of 10 consumers will not return after a bad experience. However, most of the times when you're dealing with an incumbent, when you have difficult ways of exit, strong exit barriers from that incumbent, you will just have to return because there is no other chance, or it's so painful to move from one telco to another, from one bank to another, from one insurance to another, that you basically said, okay, whatever, I will stay. As soon as disruptions arrives, this change, and I will not consider or handling that bad experience anymore, and I will just move to the disruptor or the one that has evolved. So we see this in a very extreme, component where Organizations that continue operating at this as they have been doing it for years, they recognize that 70% of their projects fail because they do not put the customer at the center of that project. So we start with the wrong assumptions, we take too much time, we try to do everything perfect, and once we put it in the market, it's not consumed. On the other side, when you concentrate on building a value proposition that starts with the customer, you will get 100 return over $1 invested. So it's absolutely the way to go. Why you want to continue operating in the same way, putting design at the end of the process, starting projects that does not conceive the customer at the center of it. Whereas in the other side, if you start with a completely different approach, you will get $100 return over every dollar that you invest. It's an absolutely no-brainer. And let's see some examples of this. This is one of the most common examples that is used to illustrate, how you can be focused on a product or a service, be talking about features, be talking about, component specifications, and on the other side, create the same under an experience. The story tells that the designer that actually created the MRI for GE, he was very, comfortable, proud of the work that he has done, until somebody close to him, a kid, a boy, had to get into an MRI and experience the painful process for a small kid to actually get into MRI. He was not only afraid by the process, he was, extremely disturbed by going into this noisy machine, where this designer has created a product and service not thinking on the patient, in this case a kid, but thinking more on the doctors, the nurses, and even the general managers of the hospital. That was the customer for whom he was designing. So again, a traditional example of we design or we create a value proposition instead of thinking that we're solving a problem, instead of actually going and realizing what is the real need that the customer had. After this, he go back to the drawing board, and he realized that the way to go into this was not about a product or a service, that he needed to build an experience. He needed to build an experience that can solve the troubles, the issues, and the pains that the small kid was having when he was getting into an MRI. So he created a theme MRI machines. Some of them theme with the space, going into the ocean, the jungle, etc. He developed scripts for the doctor and the nurses. He created, uniforms. He created a whole story, very similar to going into a theme park. That then every time that a kid was going to go into an MRI, the same story was played. So he turned something that was product, service, into an experience. So now let's get into the shoes of like your father or the mother of a small kid, and you need to take them to take an MRI. Which of the two will you prefer? The one that is based on a product or a service, or the one that is based on an experience and is actually solving the problems and the issues and the pains that your kid is having? So who will win? In our perspective, experience will win, and transformation based by design will win, because it has the ability to transform all industries that are becoming obsolete into new value propositions that can be tailored to each one. It has the ability to transform a conversation about fear. It has the ability to transform a conversation about products, services, features, specifications, and characteristics into a conversation about experiences, feelings, and relations between people and objects and elements. So it's a completely new way of actually understanding and presenting and evolving a value proposition, one that starts mainly from the product and from the product of a company, push it to the end user, the other one that actually starts from the end user, from a customer, from understanding deeply what are his issues or her issues, the problems and opportunities, and designing an experience that will relate with him and will connect with an inner perspective of that person. At the end, it's all about experience. So let's get now to our third chapter, that is about how to move forward and actually how to take all these concepts that we have been discussing and use it and apply it, either to create digital transformation or digital disruption, and always powered by design. To do so, we have crafted a concept that we call digital revolution, with these R in the middle. And before we get into what is digital revolution, you will see in this chapter that, first of all, you will need to make a choice of the what are you going to do, and second, we'll give you the tools on how actually to do it. So make a choice and what. What is the what that you need to select, and you need to take a decision. Either you're going to go for evolving your core business, the core business of your company, what has built the company, what has created the asset, what has created the business model and experience. And here we're going to be looking for an evolution that will first transform the value proposition, transform the customer experience, transform the business model, and transform the way on how we're doing data and using technology. On the other side, we have what we call a revolution, that is about building disruption, building something new outside the core, exploring into the new, anticipating, encouraging new things that most of the time will be based in reinterpreting or reassessing some of the assets that you have as a company, but looking it into a different manner, into a different way, or other times will be by building completely new assets and new propositions. You need to make a choice, and the choice will have impact on the level of transformation and the level of value that you are going to be able to create. Before we're talking about digitalization, and just as an order of magnitude, digitalization will be 1x. So if you digitalize your company, if you take a process and basically you get some efficiencies, use technology to amend it and to improve it, you will get an impact of 1x. If you take the same process and you apply transformation by design, you will get an impact of 5x. So 5x value you're going to be able to build. And if you actually go and create a disruption over that process or over that business model, you will get an impact of minimum 10x. So you need to make a choice. Of course, you need to discard this digitalization, because we already said that is something really for the short term, and what it's going to be doing is threatening the position of your company in the middle and long term. So now it's about either I go for transformation or I go for disruption. It's very important that you make the choice. It doesn't mean that is the only thing that you're going to do. No, but you need to make a choice. You need to start some way. You cannot start by doing the two at the same time. Companies that have started to do it in that way have gained it into what we call the corporate gravity or gravitational component of a corporation. That basically is like, as soon as the disruptions start taking off, because I have not transformed enough my core business, I will take that disruption and bring it into my core business, killing the disruption and also reducing the two speeds to the minimum speed of the two. So I get the worst of the two cases if I decide to actually commit from a starting position of 0 to actually execute the two at the same time. And in this sense, we'll see that this transformation, this digital revolution, will be a combination of new assets, new capabilities that are there, and usually in the organizations are scattered and not intersecting. We need strategy, we'll need creativity, we'll need innovation, and we'll need technology to actually start evolving or building revolution into your business DNA. So now let's get into the how. And for this, we have created our cocktail. Our cocktail has three components. First of all, it's about creating and building experiences. So create experience, how we design them. First, we need to start by truly understanding the needs. And we said this before. We talk about how important it is to focus on the clients and solve their problems. Design to really fulfill, a need wisely. And I love this example because this example is a great example of design, but it's not a great example of design experience. It's a great example of design. This coffee cup actually has won many design awards for its creativity, its art, etc. But it's completely useless for the purpose it was conceived, that is to drink a coffee. Just imagine what will happen if you try to drink a coffee with that coffee cup. Its design take it to an extreme of creativity that is losing the connection with the need that is trying to solve. More important is not driving any behavior in me. If any behavior, I will not drink the coffee, which is exactly the opposite that we intended to do. Second, it's about putting your clients first and starting that definition and that creation and that conception from your clients. In this example, you have two ways of consume and conceive a product. On the first one is brand-centric, is company-centric, but as we all know, we have always a problem with this ketchup bottle, because at some point we need to start to tilt it and smack it in the back to try to get some of the coffee out. In the other one, it started from fixing a problem that was created by the company, and now you just squeeze and you're always going to have ketchup ready to be consumed. So one start and ends with the consumer and with the client, the other one start and ends with the company. We need to go with the former one. Third, this is about an iterative process. This is about understanding that we need to continuously reinvent and evolve. Design, as we said before, is not static, it's dynamic, it's fluid, it's liquid. And for that, we need to understand that we will need to iterate, we'll need to make mistakes, we'll need to adapt, and we'll need to learn on how users interact with the designs and the experience that we're creating. 4, design needs to be holistic. When we talk about designing experience, it's not about getting one interaction right. It's not about getting the moments of truth right. It's about getting the entire experience right, because we're measuring experience and we're not measuring customer service. That is a performance component. We need to get everything into an holistic exercise, surrounded, compelled, and actually understood from a single perspective, that is that you're building an experience. In this example, it's a great example of designing an experience wrongly executed. One is going to be able to convey, and open the door. The other one, if you ring it by mistake, you might evacuate the building. The two are too close. The two are not building an experience. The two generate confusion. And this exactly happened in many organizations that start evolving one channel, one interaction with the customer, one front of their storefronts, one of the touch points that they have, instead of evolving everything in parallel and consistency. So I get a channel or an interaction working extremely well and the other one extremely poor. If I measure, the customer experience, I will always go and measure the lower point. Nobody values customer experience for the higher points. I value it for the lower point. So I need to move consistently up and not generate this inconsistency. And last but not least, it's about simplicity. Building and creating a design experience is about realizing and taking and developing the most simple way, the problem that you're trying to solve. It's about being so clear in the value proposition that it doesn't need an explanation. It's about being so clear in the interaction that we're trying to make that it doesn't need to have, a way of actually putting it together, explaining it, etc. It's a way of, I create a design experience that is going to drive my consumption, is going to drive my interaction, just by how simple it is. Let's go now to our second ingredient of our cocktail, that is about taking care of the entire relationship throughout the life cycle of our customers. The life cycle of our customer is conceived by 3 clear steps. First is about planning, is about where you build the relation, is about when you start engaging, you are like planting a seed of what is going to be this relation. Remember that we're trying to build relation, not transactions. We're trying to have audiences that we nurture, not clients. We're trying to get audience that at some point convert into clients, but at some point they might not be a client and they might continue to be an audience all time, and that's fine. What we're trying to do here is to plant the seed to create this relation. After that, we get into a step that we call experience. That is actually when from an audience I become a customer or a client, and I consume the product, I consume the service, I go through the experience that you have created and nurtured for me. And after that comes the remembering. I no longer consume the product, the service, or the experience, but now I can be a promoter, I can be a detractor, I can help you to actually achieve and interact in a different manner, I can help you to relate into a different manner. Most of organizations only focus on the experience side, on the experience step, and forget about the planning, forget about the remembering. So when I'm doing that, I'm just handling a conversion game. I will put a value proposition out there, I will bombard you. If you're able to convert into my value proposition, great, you become a client. If you don't convert, then you disappear. And I will retarget you to try to get you again to come back and convert. I'm not building a relation. I'm not creating, an audience. I'm not creating a sustainable path on how to design an experience. Instead, I'm just bombarding, potential customers with a conversion game. This is not what we want to do. We want to start with the planning. We want to start by planting the seed. We want to start by building and nurturing an audience and nurture it until it might convert and go through the experience. And after the experience, we want to close the loop with the remembering, something that actually helps that audience that becomes a client to become related to our brand, our value proposition, our experience, and come back again with the planning and with experience. And in this concept, we see that the consumer behavior have evolved, and now they truly demand a balance between the physical and the digital interaction. Especially with the pandemic and COVID, we go to physical interactions only if those are going to be meaningful and are going to be value for us. And in that sense, we need to focus on searching and creating unique and symbiotic channel experiences for our customer. And here, omni-channel isn't always the solution. We see so many companies obsessed by building omni-channel experiences when what you have to truly create is a symbiotic relation between your channels, where actually I can relate with the right channel in the right manner and in the right way for the purpose I'm intending to consume, for the type of experience that you're going to serve to me. And because we are the ones designing the experience, we can decide how we're going to use our channels. And this is so important. It's a big mistake to try to have all the channels delivering the same type of experience, because the channels are different, and therefore we need to deliver the experience that is catered for that channel in that particular moment. And that is so important that we get it right when we start combining a physical and a digital world. So let's get there into our third ingredient of our cocktail, that is about these specific drivers to define new solution. What I told you before, that is this backpack of 6 ingredients, 6 components that we have inside, and that basically it's going to allow us to take the number 1 ingredient of the cocktail, the number 2 ingredient of the cocktail, and now spice it up. First of all is a business model. Every time that we're going to be building this transformation by design or disruption by design, we'll be looking at the business model, how to evolve it or how to reinvent it. We'll also look for what we call the playbook experience, how we can define a vision for an experience that, as I was saying before, goes through the process, through that 3 steps that I mentioned before, in a consistent manner, but at the same time, in a manner that is catered for specific channels and processes and experience that we're intended to have in each of the touch points. Third, and this is one that I like very much, is about turning data into actionable insight and generating ways for you to actually create personalized offer, personalized experiences for each of your audiences. So remember, we're taking an audience and turning it into a customer or a client. The way to get there is by truly understanding that audience and being able to use data to turn an insight that they can be actionable and create a singular experience for that person. Loyalty is a fourth one that it's extremely important. Loyalty was something that has been there since the 70s, the 80s, but now with the power of data, with the power of technology, we're able to combine a business model, a playbook experience, data, and actionable insight with loyalty, put it together, and basically dynamize and change any business model into something that is loyalty related. Digital channels is also very important, and use it as a new way to connect customers, to relate with them, and finally is the wow factor. We need to have those moments of truth, and we need to have those moments of truth absolutely enlighten them and absolutely shining and with a true wow factor that will take us into a way that is completely different or somehow different to some of our competitors. So this is our cocktail, and if you start combining these 3 ingredients together and to build transformation by design or disruption by design, you will be able to start transforming and evolving. But here comes the last concept that I want to share with you today, that is the concept about detaching. In order to be able to create digital revolution, either evolution or revolution, you need to first detach. You need to first abandon some of the things that make you successful, abandon some of the practices, some of the way of operating, and really being able and open to reinvent and design unique experiences. And I love the example of John Legere. John Legere was an executive of AT&T in the US. You can see it here in the picture on your left. And then he became, the CEO of T-Mobile. When he went to T-Mobile, he decided to actually reinvent completely the experience, the business model, and the way on how they were using data in T-Mobile. He wanted to challenge the key principle of how telecom companies have built their value proposition and their relation with the customer. But to do so, he needed to detach and reinvent himself. So he turned from this very classy executive to this kind of like, I would say, more digital and hype leader that actually was able to drive this force that turned it down every single design prerogative or fundamental that the telecom industry had at that point. Elements such as that your plan needs to be there and it's very difficult to change it. The fact that if you don't use some of the megabytes or minutes, it will go away. He created a whole new value proposition that encapsulated this way of rethinking the business model, the experience with the customer, and how they use data. This is an iterative process, and when we get into digital revolution, you need to understand that it's about trial and error. You need to understand also that it will imply new ways of working, new methodologies. We have design thinking, design sprint, agile, scrum. All of these great methodologies are helping us to actually do and evolve the way on how we actually create and conceive value proposition. It's very important that when you embark into this journey, you first understand where are you today, you actually analyze either you are in a growing phase of your core business. Are you challenging? Is your industry being disrupted? Is your industry willing to drive disruption? How is the regulatory market? And after that, basically, you go through our cocktail that we see today and start creating digital disruption. We believe that this has never been a better moment to innovate and evolve than today. And thanks to the power of technology, and actually to really embark on digital revolution. So my question for you today is, are you ready for this digital revolution? I hope you enjoyed the class we did for the Internet Moguls of the world. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel and check out my Twitter account. My here story is about someone who has worked with corporations, NGOs, startups, helping more of 200% of them to transform or create digital disruption in 4 continents. I started very early in my career with creating a startup. I sold it. I created 2 more startups. I have been in consulting. I have been a corporate executive. And today I have mentored more than 150 entrepreneurs, invested in 14 startups. And now I'm doing digital consulting and transformation for organizations around the world. I hope you enjoyed this class. Stay tuned. Take care.